Yay. All right. Well, welcome. Today is March 14th. And if you don't already know, today is Pi Day 3.14. So today we're going to take our art into a mathematical journey where we're going to learn a little bit about pi, and we're also going to be making some beautiful string art. So all of these string art projects have to do with pi because pi is basically having to do with anything that is round. I'm going to give you a little bit of information about pi. I'm not going to bore you, I promise. But then we are going to be using some cardstock, and we're going to be using some embroidery floss, and we are going to be creating some beautiful string art. And I'll teach you the basics of how to do this, and then you can just go crazy and make as many different kinds of projects as you want to. These are great to frame if you actually want to hang them. If I still had a math classroom, I would definitely make a bunch of these and decorate my room with it. It's also a really good project, so if you are a teacher or if you know a teacher, this might be something fun that you can kind of adapt to different age levels. I've done this with high school students and I've done this with middle school students. But Felicia and I were talking before class that even smaller kids, I think, can get the idea of pi. They might not understand the whole entire concept because there might be adults in this class that don't quite understand the whole entire concept, but I'm going to try and break it down for you as best I can. So we're glad that you're here. We're glad that you're joining us. I'm going to go ahead and switch over to the other camera, and I am going to start with a little mini pi lesson. So those of you who are playing along with me today, if you have any kind of cardstock, you're welcome to do this first part with me. If you are limited on your amount of cardstock, pick one of the colors that's not your favorite, because this is kind of going to be like a practice sheet. So don't pick your favorite color that you want to have your final project on. Pick a different piece. And I'm going to start with this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the center of my paper. So I would always tell my students, this is called hot dog style. When you fold your paper in half, this is the hot dog style. And when you fold your paper in half the other direction, we call that hamburger style. And so you're folding it in half, both of the different directions. And the reason why you're folding your paper in half is to find the center. So basically, without using a ruler, we were able to find the center of our paper by finding half of the width and half of the length. I'm going to put a little pencil dot right here. And what I suggested for you to bring to class today is a cute little math set that we sell, of course, at Michael's. This math set has a compass, which helps us to draw circles, has a pencil, it has some lead, it has some erasers, and then it has a couple of different triangles, a ruler, and most importantly for our project today, a protractor. So if you have a couple of these math supplies, you can work with me. If you don't have a protractor and you can't measure, I can show you a couple side tricks to be able to kind of measure out some angles without having this proper material. So feel free to still play along and I'll try and help you adjust accordingly. So what I want us to do is we're going to first create something that's called the radius of the circle. So I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to measure from the dot in the center along that folded line, and I'm going to measure 3 inches and I'm going to put a dot. So I put my ruler on the inches side, I measured 3 inches and I put a dot. The radius is the line that goes from the center of the circle, and it's basically telling you how wide the circle is going to be created. And then when we are using our compass, there's a little plastic part at top. There's definitely a point, and there's the pencil. The point is going to go on the dot, and you're going to open your compass wide enough to be able to reach that point that you just drew with your pencil. And then it's a little bit of technique, but there's a couple different ways to do this. You definitely don't want to hold it with your hands here, because that's going to squeeze it and that's going to change the radius of your circle while you're drawing, and you're not going to end up back where you started. So you don't want to grab onto your compass using your fingers. You want to use this piece at the top, and that's where you actually want to put your fingers and glide that around in order to make a circle. Now, if you're not doing such a great job of gliding along to make your circle, another option a lot of people use is to turn your paper. So to hold your compass up tight with these fingers, you're not squeezing anything, so you're not changing how wide the circle is while it's going around. And you can move that paper and get yourself a really nice circle. Now here comes the mini pie lesson. So I have this pipe cleaner right here. This length that goes across the circle is what we call a diameter, the diameter of the circle. So the whole point of pi and what pi is all about is having to do with that diameter of the circle. So pi is the number of times it takes for the diameter to go around the circle. So this is something I think you could do even with small kids to kind of show them what pi is all about. So I'm going to start right here on the fold line on my circle. I put a dot and I'm going to fold my pipe cleaner and kind of bend it to the exact shape of the circle. So this is 1 diameter in length, and I'm going to make a mark right here. So this is 1 diameter. From that mark, I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to try and match up my pipe cleaner exactly to this circle. Here's the second time the diameter goes around, and then here's where the magic happens. So you would think that it would be exactly the number 3 that the diameter would go around the circle, but it's not. It's 3 plus this extra little chunk right here. So 3 times, 1, 2, 3 times the diameter goes around the circle plus this amount. And this amount is 0.1415925, and the digits of pi keep going on and on. So this little chunk right here represents all these different digits that are going to keep going on forever. And what makes pi something we call irrational is that all of the different digits, they don't have a pattern. It's not like it goes 1414141414 and keeps repeating. It keeps changing the digits to different numbers. So it's what we call an irrational number because it is in fact crazy. Just like irrational people, pi is irrational and it is crazy because it doesn't have a pattern. It doesn't seem to make any sense. It doesn't follow anything that is reasonable or orderly. It just lives its own life the way it wants to. So pi is really fun. I love kind of dipping into different pi things and doing different activities. We do have a playlist on the Michael's YouTube channel where I teach a couple of other Pi Day classes where kids can make Pi Day bracelets using the digits of pi and things like that. So if you have any kids in your life, or even if you want to be a kid today, you can take some of those other Pi Day classes and learn a little bit more. So now that the math lesson is out of the way, we're going to keep that piece of paper that we were working with that we folded in half, and that's going to help us get ready for our project. So when we are doing our string art project, we are going to make a polygon. So let's go ahead and take the folded piece of paper, and I'm going to use that piece of paper and put it on top of the color that I actually want to use. And I'm going to make a little indentation or possibly poke through this paper to make sure that I get the center on my new piece of paper. So get yourself a dot that's in the center of your paper. And then you can use the folded paper again to make a line that's going to go across your paper through that point. So I folded the paper in half and lined it up with my new paper in order to give me this line all the way across. This is going to be on the back side of our design, so you're not going to see any of your pencil marks, so don't worry about that part. I drew that line all the way through that center dot. And then from there, we're going to make some decisions and we're going to be doing some measuring. So let me help you make some decisions by showing you some different pictures. So this first one is obviously going to be the easiest design to do. And it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's a hexagon. So if you take 360 degrees, a circle, and you break it into 6 different sections, that means that each of the sections is going to be 60 degrees because 6 times 360, or sorry, 6 times 60 degrees gives you that full circle of 360. So for all of these kind of circular designs, you want to find numbers that work together. So you could do every 2 degrees and have 180 sides to your polygon, which is going to be crazy and a lot of string and a lot of time. So you probably don't want to do that. But these are lots of different pairs. If you do a 6-sided figure, each one of them is going to be 60 degrees that will measure out. If you want to do something like this one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 12 sides. So 360 divided by 12 is 30. And the way that I made this particular design is by measuring every 30 degrees. So I'm probably going to make mine, I think every 30 degrees, which is a 12-sided figure. And this is an example, of a 12-sided figure. So I measured all the pie pieces, each of those to be 30 degrees, and that was able to give me 12 different sides, which is called a dodecagon. And then we have lots of different ways that we can string this. Now you can make something even more complicated. Like this one has 36 sides. So every 10 degrees, I decided to make a mark, and I was able to make a 36-sided figure. And then you don't have to fill in the whole entire thing with string. You could just come from one point and take all the diagonals coming from that one point and create kind of like a seashell feeling. So if you want to do the easiest version, you should measure every 60 degrees. I'm going to do just a smidge tougher. Maybe I'll do every 40 degrees to give us a 9-sided figure. So what that means is that when you have your protractor, the center part of your protractor needs to go on the dot, and you need this line on your protractor to line up with the line that you drew in pencil. Let me know in the chat if I'm going too fast, or if you have some questions, or if you need a second to catch up, and I will be happy to stop and kind of help everybody get back on track. So the dot is on the dot, the 0 and the 180 are on the line, so I know that my protractor is straight. Here's where the 0 is. So look at the inside numbers, and you start at 0 and go all the way up to 180 degrees. So I told you that every 40 degrees, I'm going to make a dash. Lots of memories from high school. There we go. So I went from 0 to 40. I made a pencil dash. I'm going to go from 40 to 80 and make a dash. From 80 to 120. From 120 to 160. And then I'm going to go from there. So because I left off right there, I'm going to go ahead and draw in that line, that little radius. And then I'm going to start my measuring from the spot I left off on, or you can turn your paper around. So from that line that I left off on, I need to go 40 degrees and put a dash, 40 more degrees, 40 more, and 40 more. And that should take us back to this line where we have all of our 40 degrees marked all the way across. This line isn't technically going to be used in our design, the line that we drew all the way across, because from here to here is going to be our 40 degrees. So you can measure off every 30 degrees, every 40 degrees. You can use any of these number pairs in order to get you a different sized polygon than the one that I'm going to be using. But I measured every 40 degrees. Now I need a circle. So I want the circle to also be 3 inches wide. So I'm going to take my ruler like I did before, and I'm going to measure from the center 3 inches, and I'm going to put a dash. So I measured from the center 3 inches and put a dash. And then I'm going to use my compass, and I'm going to put the point on the point, and I'm going to open it up so that it touches that dot I want it to touch. And then remember to hold on to the top as you go around and make that circle. Now we're going to be taking our ruler, and we are going to be drawing lines. So from the center to each one of these spots on the circle, we're going to be drawing these lines in. So I'm turning every 40 degrees, and I'm making a little pie slice, and my pie slice goes through the dash I created. There we go. And all of this is on the back side of your work, so you don't have to worry about if you have any eraser marks or any scratches or anything like this. All of this is going to be hidden on the back. So hopefully you have, if you measured exactly 40 degrees like I do, you should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 slices of pie. And now we get to use our embroidery needles. So in the package of needles that I showed you for today, there's a variety of needles. I want you to find a needle that definitely has a point at it, because you're going to need the pointy part of the needle. You don't want a dull needle to be able to poke through this cardstock, but you definitely want the needle, the head of the needle or the eye of the needle, to be wide enough to be able to fit embroidery floss through it. So find one of your needles in your pack that's going to fit embroidery floss, but also is going to be sharp to be able to poke through the paper. I'm going to go to each one of those places where the line touched the circle, and I'm going to poke through my paper and make a hole at each one of these spots. And you should have 9 different holes. And I'll show you on the other side. You might be able to see that. Oops, I missed one. Now you might be able to see a little bit of sunlight peeking through my 9 different holes. And this is the side without the pencils that's going to end up being your good side. And the side with all your pencil mark is going to be what I call the bad side. Now pick out whatever color embroidery floss you want to use. What color do I want to use? I'm going to use kind of like a little tan color. So the color I'm using is a loop thin thread embroidery floss that's 762 if you wanted to do the exact same one. And to start, I'm going to pull out some of the embroidery floss and just what I would call maybe about 20 inches or so. You don't want to get a really, really long stretch because it's going to get knotted up very quickly. And then the other thing that we're going to be using today is tape. And tape is what's going to help us so that we don't have to tie a lot of knots. We're going to be taping all of our ends down onto the bad side of the paper. And so I have this cute little tape dispenser that clips onto my table. And so I don't have to use 2 hands to hold on to the tape dispenser. So this is also available at Michael's if you need this for some Christmas wrapping or for some Pi Day projects you didn't know you needed it for, you know, you can get this. So I'm going to clip this to the edge of my table, and that's the tape I'm going to be using. And then I'm going to take a moment and thread my needle. This could potentially be the hardest part. And that's why I got my glasses on today. Get this thread through the needle so we can party. There we go. Oops, I missed one. And if you have embroidery floss that has 6 different strands, if you find that all 6 of your strands do not fit through the needle that you happen to have, then you can always take apart the strands and use fewer of them, or find a needle that has a little bit of a bigger eye that you can definitely fit your embroidery floss through it. It's not my lucky day. There we go. All right. I am going to come up through one of these points, and I'm going to tape down the end of my embroidery floss. And the goal, this is with the hexagon, but the goal is for a line to come out of each one of these points and to go to each one of the other points around the circle. So once you've kind of completed all of the diagonals that come out of that point, you move on to your next point and you're going to connect all the diagonals. You can do them in whatever order you want to, as long as each one of your points has all of the diagonals. So here we go. on the bad side of the paper, I'm going to take my embroidery needle and I'm going to go through the paper and I'm going to pull it through until I get probably about an inch of my tail left over on the paper. And I'm going to take a little piece of tape and I'm going to tape it down. And I'm taping it down away from the circle so that it's not getting too bunchy over top of here because I'm going to need to go through that hole several times. All right, now you can make any of these lines. You can just come from this point and connect to any one of the dots on your paper. I'm going to go to the one right next to it, and I'm going to push down through the paper and pull my embroidery floss to make that first line. Then I'm going to go through that same point I started at, and I'm going to go to the next point. And you can tell probably already that this is how I made that fan shape I showed you before by just coming from one point and going to each one of the different dots. Come back through that original point. And go through another one. Eventually, you're going to find that you're going to be running out of floss, or eventually you're going to find some shortcuts. So I know that the next line goes from here to here. So rather than coming from here and going to here, if I start at this point, I'm going to save a little bit of my embroidery floss because it's not going to have to use as much to keep going back to the original one. So I could potentially go through this spot next to it and then go back to the original point and save myself a little bit of embroidery floss. And when you do run out, like I am about to right now, you're just gonna tape it down and then cut yourself another piece and keep going. So let me know if you have any questions in the chat so far. And you are welcome to kind of play around with the colors. So I want to show you on this one. This one is called an octadecagon. It's 18-sided, which means that it is every 20 degrees. So every 20 degrees ended up giving me 18 sides. Basically, it's like the 9-side one we're doing, but with dots in between each one of those. And I decided to use 2 different colors. So every other point I went to from white coming out of this one, and then I changed to yellow, and then I changed back to white. So you can switch up your colors. You can also use a different type of embroidery floss that's called variegated, which changes the colors for you. And it can make your design totally different using the exact same procedure, but just the color choice of your floss can really make your picture much different. So I'm going to pull some more of this embroidery floss and I'm going to start again by taping down. I'm curious to know if anyone is following along and able to make a picture. And if you are, we would love to see it. And if you want to post something later on Instagram, you can tag us at Learn with Michaels, and we would be happy to show off your beautiful string art and help everyone celebrate Pi Day. So remember when you're taping down that you always want to tape down on the bad side. So I'm going to pull my new piece of string all the way through, leave a little bit of a tail. It's fine for the tails to stack up, but I'm just going to tape it to the side to show you that's a new tail. And yep, perfect. Always taping on the bad side. And then I'm going to go up to this next diagonal spot. Perfect. And I'm going to do my shortcut. I'm going to come up through this point and go back to the original dot. There we go. And this is me just trying to save a little bit of string and keeping me from having to rethread my needle so many times. But if you're a professional needle threader, then you're good to go. And I can do this next point. There we go. And my last point. And obviously we're doing this on cardstock because if we were trying to do this on normal paper, it would be bending a little bit too much and the paper would start to kind of bow and our stitches would get a little bit wonky, but we're able to nice and pretty straight and pretty even by using this cardstock. Once you've finished one of these points, you're going to move on to the next point. But I just want you to notice that since we used a 9-sided figure with every 40 degrees that we measured, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different diagonals that come out of each point. So when you start doing all of the yarn coming through each one of the points, you always want to check and make sure that you have every one of them covered so that you can complete the whole entire design. So you can pick whichever other point you want to go to and start connecting all the points to that one again. And if at any point you feel like you're happy with your design and you want to stop, you can. So this one, I got this far and it kind of looked like a seashell. There's something called the Camino de Santiago, which is a walk in Spain that I did when I was in college because I used to be crazy. And it kind of reminds me of the seashell that goes along with the Compostela. So that was something that I was like, once I got that design, I'm like, oh, done, ready to move on. Or you can keep going. So I'm going to keep going and connect more of my diagonals together. If you have questions, let me know. But we'll take some time and do some stitching. And anytime you run out or you can't quite make it, just go ahead and tape it down and start again. I am super curious. Did anyone ever do sewing cards when they were little? Does anyone have any idea? I feel like they were made out of like wood and you had like these strings that were like shoelaces that it would like teach you how to sew, but it was on like these wooden. I feel like that's a thing, but maybe I'm not remembering quite correctly. I'm curious if anyone else remembers those. These were like one of my favorite things to do when I was younger. Alicia also put in the chat that you can follow me personally at 4M Coleman. That's my Instagram. And I've already posted a couple of my different string art designs. But you're welcome to look through there and it'll show you some of the different projects I'm working on for classes I'm going to teach in the future too. And some of the classes I've already taught that are available on the Michael's YouTube channel. For example, similar to what we're doing right now, I taught a class a couple weeks ago about embellishing photography with embroidery floss. So this is a picture of the London Eye, and this class is already on YouTube, and I actually gave you access to this exact picture if you ever want to try this. So if you're enjoying what we're doing right now and finding it to be kind of relaxing and fun, you're welcome to check out that video and see how we did the same kind of thing. You can see all my stitches on the back. And I just kind of took the outline of the London Eye and added in some of the different triangular trusses that hold that together. And then I, of course, took some other cute pictures of my grandma or of me and my sister and embellished those with some, I love this one with the little ponytail holders. Oh my God, that's so darn cute. So you can check out that video on YouTube also. Because February was National Embroidery Month, so we were super busy teaching all kinds of embroidery classes that are really fun. So Nancy is admitting that she remembers some animal cards and you sew the parts together. Oh, that sounds fun. Mixing and matching up different animal parts. I like that. That sounds like fun. And Deb remembers that she hammered nails into a board and strung thread one at a time. Yes. So for a while there, at lots of different crafting parties and different companies that you can go to and kind of like craft with different people and hang out with people, their string art definitely made a resurgence recently. So yeah, that hammering nails into a board reminds me a lot of what we're doing again. You could do this on wood. So you could do all your measuring on a piece of wood, and at each one of these points that we're doing, you can go ahead and put a nail in at each one of those 9 points, and then just wrap the yarn or wrap the floss around each one. And you can make some very, very cool projects that way too. So thanks for reminding me about that. And you'll notice I'm going to start kind of jumping around a little bit because I'm going to try and be more strategic with my floss and use a little bit less. It is hard to hold the nails and hammer by yourself. That is absolutely a real thing. I get that. Also, I used to work at summer camps, and I would teach a lot of arts and crafts at summer camps. And I will give you the heads up right now, do not teach a class of kids how to hammer at the same time. If you ever want your head to recover, oh my gosh. We were even outside because it was a camp, but having that many children with hammers and the sound, oh my goodness, it forever gave me a headache, and probably everyone else at the camp too. So not recommended in small spaces, lots of kids with hammers. That sounds like a bad idea, but we live and learn. So Sally says she hasn't done sewing cards. Oh, but she's taken regular greeting cards. Oh, and added some flowers and leaves. That's a great idea. Like imagine if this was a greeting card instead of a picture. But yeah, again, having that cardstock or having the thickness of the cardstock and then just adding whatever kind of stitches. That's fun. This one is one I did in the other class too. It's the picture of my grandma from the 20s, which I love. But we added French knots, and then we added a couple stitches on her shoes to kind of pop those out too. So you can add different kinds of stitches. Any of the typical embroidery stitches would all be great. I love having these live classes, and I love that so many of you are participating in the chat because it just feels like a really fun, crafty conversation that we're having. Talking with people who like to do crafts. And so many good ideas come up. But yeah, I love the idea of embroidery floss on a greeting card.
You know, Megan, I had just put in the chat that those who were talking about doing the hammering by themselves, they actually can, find whatever that they're trying to do, whether it's a name or whatever, print it out on paper,
Yep.
and then put that paper on whatever wood you're going to use.
Because then it just will come back up. You're
Yeah,
right.
it'll be a template, and then once put your nails in there, then you pull the paper up
Love it.
and do your stringing.
See? I know. This is our community. I like the idea of tatting flowers on lacy things on greeting cards. It is kind of like a little tattoo, adding some extra embroidery floss. I think that's cute. I like that idea. So next week, Felicia and I usually host these classes on Thursdays and Fridays. And next week, one of the classes I have is moss and miniatures. So it's spring, it's time to start decorating for spring. And we have lots of cool things at Michael's. Miniatures have been so popular and they're still very, very popular. I've done a couple classes for Halloween and Christmas where I take some of the miniatures we sell and put them into little like dioramas or into little scenes. So picture kind of like fairy gardens, but a little bit more sophisticated than a fairy garden. The one that I'm going to be doing on the Moss and Minis class has like a mossy piano, and it reminds me a lot of Taylor Swift on her tour. She had this piano that was pretty natural when she was doing a lot of her songs, and that's what it kind of reminds me of. And then add some butterflies, add some flowers, add some different kind of things to give it that real springtime airy feel. So between having a bunch of different moss decor and having a bunch of different miniatures, we're going to see what we can create with those too. And I am definitely jumping around, but if I think I'm at a place where I'm going to be done, again, remember to count. So at each one of these points, you should have 8 different lines coming out. And if you don't have 8 different lines, that's how you double check yourself and make sure that you know you need to go back and add one in. But every single one of these points should have 8 different lines coming out of that same point. This also kind of reminds me, I don't know if anyone ever, anyone here went to camp in the 80s, of kind of, do you remember God's eyes that we would use like sticks that we found and wrap yarn around those to make different designs too? I don't know if that's a Midwest thing or if that's something y'all ever did too. Oops. I gotta find where this last one was because I ran out. Yes, okay, good. It's not just me. Nancy, are you from Pennsylvania? I forget. Right, popsicle sticks or twigs, whatever we can find. Ohio. Oh, yeah, nice. All right. I grew up in Ohio, so maybe that was an Ohio thing we did. Techniques is once I start with a new piece of embroidery floss, I try and find one of the longest diagonals to take care of because those are easier to take care of when you just rethread at your needle rather than try to fit them in at the end when you're running out of thread. So I try and take care of a couple of the longest lines I can so I don't have to rethread as quickly, or so that I can make sure to get those long lines in while I still have plenty of embroidery floss. Mine's starting to shape up pretty nicely. I have at least a couple 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, at least a couple of different dots that have all of the diagonals. Over here, I'm missing one, so I need to get this one in order to complete that. And feel free to, if you want to, keep track over here, like when you know for sure that one of your dots has all of the diagonals, you can kind of make yourself a little star or a mark on the back to be like, nope, this one's done. Don't worry about this one. Go to one of the other ones. And also, if you wanted to be very methodical about it, you could go from point to point to point and know exactly when you're done, because you'd be keeping track in a much more concise way rather than the kind of random hodgepodge I'm doing right now. So I'm glad this is relaxing for you. It's definitely relaxing for me too. It's kind of fun. And you can imagine that I used to trick lots of kids into liking math by doing projects like this. They're like, what? We're doing math? Yeah, we are, which is pretty awesome. So this video will be available on YouTube on Monday. And if you want to share it with somebody else, I would love for you to do that. Again, if you know a teacher or if you know someone who works with kids, this is a good summer camp project. I didn't specifically mark it for kids today because I wanted to have fun with adults, and also because I'm using embroidery floss and needles that are technically not aged for children. So you can do this with plastic needles and with yarn, and maybe using foam instead of the cardstock, and turn this into a kid project as well. You can do it, Tim. My sister-in-law may or may not be on this call with us right now. And she is a teacher also and must be on spring break this week. And so I am so proud of you for taking a class during spring break. So thank you so much for joining us today. And we got some of our faves. Oh, look at that. Okay, and Dar's showing us all up because she used like scrapbook paper. Show it again. Yep, she used like scrapbook paper to make the design over top of. Oh my gosh, genius. Love it. So yep, any of that 12 by 12 scrapbook paper or any of that thicker cardstock. And thank you so much. I appreciate that. And I'm doing okay with threading my needle. I hope you are too. We're still doing pretty well on time, so I think I'm going to be able to finish my project during class today. But if you need to keep working on it later, don't forget to take a picture and share it with us on Learn with Michaels so that we can show it off. Getting close, it's getting exciting. And the question in the chat says, do they make needle threaders for embroidery floss? They sure do. So in the sewing needles kit that I think I put in the list for today, it comes with a needle threader. And so the needle threader is a little piece of wire that goes through the needle a lot easier than the thread. And then you put the thread through the wire and pull the wire through, and it's much easier for you to thread. So there is help if you need help. There's also something, it comes in a little tin, almost like a chapstick or something, that you can rub your embroidery floss through, and it kind of like wax coats it a little bit. And then that helps you to be able to get it through the eye of the needle a little bit easier also. So the whole pattern that we used, what we did in order to do that was we used our protractor from our math set that we were showing off earlier, and we measured 40 degrees and every 40 degrees around the circle, we drew a line to make all these different pie slices. And so if we break 360 degrees up into 9 different slices, that means each one of those slices is 40 degrees. And then from there, once we have those dots on our circle, we're connecting diagonals, and each one of the dots should have 8 different diagonals coming out of it. And you know that you'll be able to finish off with that. I think I read the question wrong. So Nancy was asking about, did I show the whole pattern for the one that looks like a plus shape? I didn't yet, but thank you for bringing that up. So I think this is the one that Nancy's talking about, and I can show you how to do this one. But this is a little variation where basically you're doing something. I'm going to trick you into doing more math again, but it makes something called a parabolic curve, or a parabola, if you remember that from any of your high school math. So let me show you the basics of that one. This is kind of the math behind what's going on in this plus sign shape one. So what happens is we make lines, and I can use the paper that I already had folded. And this is kind of like a side project if you want to try this one again later. So I'm going to draw the lines going across and going up and down by using my guide paper. So I don't have to measure, I can just use the halves of each of these cardstocks. And then in order to set this up, I'm going to use my ruler, and every 1/2 of an inch, I'm going to put a dot. And I'm going to do that in all 4 directions, which, to get a little nerdy on you, is called 4 quadrants. I'm just reminding you of all kinds of math you forgot about. I'm kind of making like a grid or a graph. And then to help you out, if you want to try and do this yourself later, I'm going to number these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm going to letter these, but I'm going to start up here with A and go down. So A, B, C, D, E, F. And the way that you're going to make this shape with these parabolas is by connecting straight lines. So really, I mean, if you take a second to believe in math magic, like the fact that you're going to take straight lines and turn them into a perfect curve, that's kind of magical. That's pretty amazing, if I do say so myself. So I'm going to put point A and number 1, and I'm going to connect them together with a straight line. Pretend like this is floss, but I'm not going to do it with floss right now. I'm going to do it with lines. Then I'm going to go point B to number 2, point C to number 3, D to number 4, E to number 5, and F to number 6. Ta-da! Look at how pretty that curve is, made out of straight lines. So you can imagine that I could have used my embroidery floss instead of drawing the lines, or if you would rather, you can do this without labeling it, and you can just draw using pencil and paper or beautiful colored pencils or markers or something like this, and make some of your own Sharpie designs and make these as complicated as you want to. You could do all the way along the side and all the way along the side and just keep doing the lines and making one big curve. But I like putting the curves so that they go outward to make this kind of cool shape. But you could also make the curves going in the other direction so that it opens to a circle. So you can play along with that. But the idea behind making this parabolic curve is by connecting the top to the first, and then continuing to go down the line and connecting all of those to make those really cool lines. So Nancy, thank you for reminding me so that I didn't forget about that extra side task you could try. Side quest, I should call it. And I think I'm going to be able to finish my design by the end of class, and I'm going to be really proud of myself for finishing the whole thing. think it would also be cool to make a time-lapse video of this appearing and just kind of watch the string magically make this shape. That would be fun too. I mean, I can't have all the fun today. I gotta save some fun for another day. But it is Pi Day, so this is a special day. A special day for sure. In my math classroom, when I taught high school and when I taught middle school, my kids used to do Pi Day projects. And in high school, we always did math fun as an oxymoron. That's not true. I disagree. That's funny. Yeah. When I call people nerds, then you know you're a nerd, because if the math teacher's calling you a nerd, you're a real nerd. Clearly, I'm not a nerd. That's funny. But yeah, I used to do these projects where the kids would make up songs, and they would like, the songs had to be about pi and about different facts about pi and why you use pi and things like that. So they take like famous songs and they would change them, like Pie of the Tiger, for example, like old school song. And then they would put the digits of math of pi into the song. And um we've had some really good ones over the years. So I still have former students who remember Pi Day and will try and reach out to me and wish me happy Pi Day, which is a fun way to be remembered as a teacher. I like that. Am I there? Yay, I did it. I just double checked. I do fools fall in love. Yes, and I used to make some of my teacher colleagues join in and sometimes make a music video with me. So when Firework, Katy Perry's Firework was popular, we did maybe 2 pi r will work, and we taught everybody about surface area and different formulas. So giant nerds here. I finished my design. I'm really happy with it. So we used 40 degrees and we made a 9-sided nonagon. I think They Might Be Giants has a nonagon song too. So I hope that you had a good time. I know that I definitely had a good time, and maybe we even learned something. So the takeaway from this class is that pi is the number of times that the diameter goes around the circle. That's all you need to know. And then you can impress all your friends and tell them things they never wanted to know. And also, because it's Pi Day, there's lots of different companies that have like pizza and pie sales and deals today. So watch out for those, because you need to take advantage and you need to really celebrate. So thank you for coming today. I had a great time, and I hope to see you again really soon. Bye, everyone.